Alright, we are going to learn the mirror modifier and apply it to an airplane. So let's get started. I've got the cube and the light and the camera are sitting there, so I'm going to get rid of the camera view and the lamp view just to get them out of the way. I'm going to delete this cube because an airplane should probably start with a cylinder. So Shift A or go to your Add menu, Mesh, and Cylinder. Now I'm going to go to a front view 1 and rotate this R90 to rotate it 90 degrees. Hit enter. Now I'm going to scale this down, S to scale the whole thing down a little ways, about halfway, and then I'm going to also scale it, S, on the X-axis. So S, then X. I'm going to pull it out almost the size of the grid. Okay, there's my main part of the airplane. So we have to set this up a little bit before we use the mirror modifier. So in order to do that, we need to extrude the ends, both ends, and scale them down a little bit to get the nose cone and the tail piece. So I'm going to hit 1 on my keyboard and 5 to go into orthographic view, and Z for wireframe. And here, hit A to deselect. Actually, select it and then tab into edit mode, and then A to deselect. Okay, so here I'm going to add a couple loop cuts. So Control R, click and drag towards, let's go to the right side. And I'm going to put it right about here. I'm going to make a nose cone out of this. And then after I get that first one, if I hold down Shift and middle mouse click over to this side, Control R right in the middle, and then before I click it, I'm going to scroll up twice to get 3 loop cuts. And then I'll click twice, actually, to set them. Okay, now I have 4 or 5 loop cuts here to work with, and I'm going to just pull them in gradually to make a nose cone. So if I deselect everything, make sure everything is deselected, then B, border select. I'm going to get everything but the first loop cut. Then I'm going to hit S to scale it down. And then A, then B for border select. S to scale it down. And I want it to gradually go a little more than the previous one toward the center. And the last one I'll just hit scale and then 0 to take it down to the middle. I can adjust these later if I want. If I want to bring them in just a little bit, that makes the sloping more less gradual, more steep. So it depends on what you want your nose cone to look like, but that looks pretty good right there. Okay, now that I've got that, I'm going to go to the back side. So, oops. Go to the back side, I'm going to make a loop cut, Control R, click and drag about to here. And then I'm going to deselect, border select that back piece and scale it about to there, and then I'm going to pull it up so that the top is about flat with the rest. And that's kind of the tail of the airplane. They look something like that. I'm going to extend mine just a little bit. It doesn't look quite long enough. Okay. Now, the last thing we need to do this. So I didn't pull this face down to 0. If I go out of wireframe mode, Z, and then go into face select, a shortcut for that is Control Tab, so that you don't have to go down here and click on it. Control Tab, it just shows up wherever your mouse is. Go to face select, right click on this. Face, I'm going to delete it, and then I'm going to grab my edge loop, Control Tab, Edge, Alt click the edge to select the whole edge loop, and just our extrude E, scale S 0 down to 0. That way when we smooth it, it will look correct, it will look nice and smooth instead of all messed up. Oops. Alright, so we've got it to a good point where we can now cut it in half and use the mirror modifier. The reason is because from this point on, everything that we extrude, we want to extrude on the other side. And rather than doing it twice, we're going to use the mirror modifier, and whatever we do to one side, it's going to automatically do that to the other side with our wings and our tail fins and the rest of the stuff that we need. So that's kind of tricky, this mirror modifier. It has to be perfectly mirrored. So let's go to a front view 3 for the front view, 5 for orthographic. Make sure right up here it says ortho. I'm going to zoom in on it, and I'm going to go to wireframe mode Z. Now this is a little bit tricky, but we're going to try and select. Let's see, am I in edit mode? Yes, edit mode. If I go into, oh, that's what's funny though. Okay, edge select, border select, and I'm going to just come over to the right side. I'm going to get rid of the right side, and I'm going to go not exactly in the middle, just to the right of the middle. Click and drag and select everything. Oh, but I didn't quite get it. Maybe it's face select that I want. Let's try that. Just go slightly to the right of the middle. Yeah, that looks a little better. So I've got it all selected on the right side. And then I'm going to go out of wireframe mode, just so I can kind of look at it and see what I'm doing. If I delete those faces, it should be perfectly in half. Sometimes you miss a couple little ones right in here, but you can just go in and delete those if you missed them. Delete them individually. If you've got anything on the left side that was deleted, you need to redo it. Just Control Z and try again. Try and get it exactly in half. Very important. Okay, now I'm going to go out to object mode, and now I can apply the mirror modifier. So come up here to your modifiers and find a mirror right in the middle of the list here on the second column. And it's automatically mirroring on the x-axis. I'm going to take off the x and do the y. And then it shows exactly the other half of what I've modeled so far. And you can't tell what it's doing exactly until you go into edit mode. Once you go into edit mode, you can see that half of it is editable and the other half is just there. So that's the mirrored half. So we're going to edit this side, and this side's just going to show up. Okay, so one more real important thing, and then it's kind of obvious from there. You just kind of model the airplane how you want. This tail fin, well, there's one right in the middle that's going to come up. And so if I extrude this, get the face, extrude it, and look what it does. It pulls it up, but it's on a slight angle, that piece right there, that face. And so one comes up this way and the other mirrors, but it's not together, which is maybe kind of cool for a fighter jet or something. But for an airliner, that's going to be a problem. So this is kind of tricky. But if you have face select, what I want to do, well, eventually I'm going to pull it towards the middle and just make one out of those two. Once I go into object mode, it's going to look like one. But before I do that, because I have this face here, I don't want two faces right next to each other. So I'm going to delete this face. So click on the face that's right in the middle and delete faces. And that way, when I pull them together, see that there's no face there. When I pull them together, the edges are going to connect, but there won't be a face in there to mess up our smooth modifier, our subdivision surface modifier, because if there was a face there, it would not like that. Alright, now I'm going to grab this face and pull it in, but to get it exact, because I could come in beyond it, and it would just go right through, so I need to get it exactly on, well, together. So there's a couple different ways to do that. The best way, especially since our cylinder was right in the middle of the grid, I'm going to hit 3, and actually Control 3 will get me to the back of the airplane. Either way, we can see that well enough. And instead of the face select, I'm going to select this edge right there. So I'm going to go to edge select that inside edge, and I'm just going to come over here to my menu and take that on the y-axis. I'm going to take it down to 0. It's going to put it right on that axis, and they will be basically connected. So if I tab out to object mode, there's my tail fins, pretty fat, so I'm going to change that. So if I get this edge loop and bring that in, I can bring it down to a point or wherever I want to bring it. And that's kind of just how you'll decide how to shape your airplane. Okay, so there's my tail fin. The next thing on any of the fins that we create, let's see, one for side view. Ooh, one other thing, let me show you, if you're not already past this point, but if you select something, if you hit on the keypad, there's a period key right next to the 0. If you hit that, it zooms in on that, and then you can, when you pan around, it focuses on that point. So if your view is somewhere down here, you're like, how do I get up there? Just hit the period key. It also says delete, and it zooms in on there, and then when you zoom in, or it focuses on there, when you zoom in, it goes right to it. Okay, let me go to a side view 1. And right here, this is not a great tail fin. First of all, I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to go into wireframe mode, so I'm making sure I'm selecting all the faces I need. Pull it up a little ways. Actually, I'm going to go into vertex select, border select one of the sides, and I'm going to pull this one back and just kind of shape it how I want it for my airplane. I'm going to pull both of them back. All airplanes have different styles, so it just kind of depends on what you want it to look like. But that's how I get the wings to look like actual wings, or the tail fins. So now, I might just let you go and kind of experiment here and make an airplane, but what I would do at this point is come to the side and pick something to extrude on the wings. Actually, before I do that, I would loop cut. So Control R, loop cut, and the wings are going to be somewhere. So I can go to the side view here. Loop cut a couple times for the wings, and my wings are going to be in between those lines right there. My tail fins might be over here. One thing I could have done also is, and I could do this now, well, no, I don't want to do that. Could loop cut here on the end, because sometimes the tail fin doesn't come all the way out to the end, so I could loop cut right here and then extend the tail fin, or get rid of these faces right here, fill in what's missing, and then it wouldn't come all the way to the end. And so, face select, if I go to a top view 7 and extrude this wing, you'll see that it's going to extrude on both sides. And if I go into vertex select and wireframe mode and select just one side, I'm going to pull the wing back, and then if I select both of them, I can pull those wings back. Okay. And so just like that, it pulls out the wing, it pulls it out on both sides, and they're exactly symmetrical, which is nice when you're modeling something, because it should be. Okay, so after that wing, get your tail fins, make them look like wings, and beyond that, well, that's your airplane. After the tail fins, beyond that, you can make it look as nice, as fancy as you want. Of course, you would put the Boolean modifier on it. Sorry, not Boolean, the subdivision surface modifier on it. Crank it up to 3 on both sides, finish the smoothing, and then of course that doesn't look quite right. It looks fancy, but not great. I'm going to go into edit mode and put some loop cuts. Maybe not that one. Put some loop cuts to pull it back to where I want it, those wings. Of course we know how to do that already. But then we've got a pretty nice smoothed out airplane without tail fins. That's up to you to stick the tail fins on there. And then you'll light it up nicely, put maybe some colors on it, and do some fun things to it.